Hi, everyone, and welcome to the London Bulls Podcast with me, KD, and my co-host, Tom. Tom, how are you doing, my friend? Good to see you again.
I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, doing very well. Very, very excited for today. The amount of comments and things that we've had from people about today's podcast, it's just, you hear about, obviously, we're not quite old enough to have watched this man play, but when you hear people talking about ex-players and with such passion, it's, I'm looking forward to speaking to him.
Absolute legend of the game, and especially for Hereford United. I mean, Winston, one absolute pleasure to have you. Where are you calling us from today? We see you, your really cool posts in America, doing some amazing things, but where are you at the moment?
I'm actually in London, in the capital at the moment, and just recently got back from France. I was in Nice. I went to Nice Soccer Club, went to Monaco Soccer Club, for business and a little bit of pleasure as well. And I'm truly a global citizen now.
Well, that's, talking to us as the London Bulls, so it's good to have you in London with us. So, I want to just kind of kick things off and just understand for you, I mean, what was your journey into football? How did you fall in love with the game? Where did it all begin?
Well, as far as I can remember, I always wanted a football with me. In fact, I posted on a Facebook page the other day. I was 3 years of age, and I had a football in my hand, and my mum told me that to drop the football, and I refused to do it. I had to have that football in my hand, or else I wouldn't take the picture. And so she succumbed, and so the first picture I ever took in a suit, it wasn't a Giorgio Armani suit, but it was a suit. I had a football, and honestly, I remember that really well. And from then onwards, I fell in love with the game. I just used to kick the ball against the wall, as we all did, for hours and hours and hours. And that was my love affair. And I didn't know how good I was. I was just playing with my friends on the park, as you do. And people started to gravitate towards the ability that I had. And it helped that I had a brother who was a semi-professional as well. He played for some decent teams. So he encouraged me. He knew some of the pitfalls and so on and so forth. So it helped that I had somebody in the family that loved the game. And, on a numerous amount of occasions, he took me to matches as well. Because we were from a humble background, we weren't, seven of us, seven kids and, parents. So, it was kind of a pecking order, if you will. So it really helped when my brother took me to games, and then there were some amazing coaches that helped me on my journey, So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and the journey still goes on, even though I put a 6-inch nail in my boots now, so I don't play anymore at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do you talk about your upbringing, your background there. How do you think that shaped you as a person and your career? Did it make you more determined to succeed?
You know what? Honestly, Tom and KD, I didn't know how good I was. So, and I didn't know that, because firstly, the Caribbean culture, it's all about cricket. Back in the day, it was all about cricket. And if I picked up a cricket bat, it was okay, but it wasn't my calling. I just kept playing football every chance I got. I played football. The amount of shoes I wore out were legendary. I used to steal my brother's boots at times just so I could put something on my feet. The reality of it, I didn't know how good I was until people told me. And so that sort of, story about being hungry and that sort of stuff, it never applied to me, because I always felt privileged as a kid anyway. I was the youngest of 4 boys. They probably had a harder time than me, in as much as, they grew up in the Caribbean. I was born in England. And so life was a little bit easier, for myself. So, I'm not going to sit here and give you a rags to riches story. It wasn't like that. It was just pure love of something that was, I believe, a God-given talent that allowed me to play for 19 years. And it has defined me as a person. There's no two ways about that, because I still have the same love for the game now. And I'll tell you obviously about what I'm doing, now as an individual, but it's all been an incredible journey for me. So in terms of what it's given me pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Identity, which is really important for every kid, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and obviously that journey from a sort of more professional standpoint started at Leicester City.
Yes.
Obviously your hometown.
Yeah.
What what was that like? Obviously, so were they first division at that time?
They were first division. Yeah, Jimmy Bloomfield was the manager. I was scouted by Ray Shaw, who's no longer with us. Jimmy Bloomfield took me on, gave me my debut at just shy of 18 years of age, and it was an incredible opportunity for me playing in my hometown. Again, I didn't realize the significance of it, being the first black player to play for Leicester. Never ever took that on board. I just got on with it. A lot of people say, football has become institutionalized in terms of the way that they think and, single-minded, focused. And I was very much that. I knew that I was competitive. That's what I was. I wouldn't say it was hungry. I'd say I was competitive. And as soon as I realized that I could compete with the big boys, and when I say the big boys, I'm talking about when I was like 14 and 15 years of age. I didn't have the privilege of going to what they call academies now. They were like feeder clubs for Leicester City. My parents couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to take 2 buses and go and play with the elite players that you played with against them at school and stuff like that. So I just got on with it. And it was only when I was given an apprenticeship and I saw 1 or 2 of these players and I realized that I was actually better than them. Right. And there was nothing to be intimidated about. That's when you get the confidence, and then obviously the coaches, managers have a belief in you, and you just either take it or you lose it, so to speak. And fortunate enough, I took advantage of it in every which way possible. But there's been some pitfalls. Let's not make no mistake about it. There's been some pitfalls, and again, I'm happy to share that with you. I'm an open book.
I want to touch on what you said about being a trailblazer, because you absolutely are. The first black player for Leicester City is an unbelievable achievement. And you said at the time you didn't realise the magnitude of it, but we've seen some amazing players come through after you as well, like Wes Morgan lifting the Premier League trophy, Emil Heskey. So when you look back at it from now, like, how does that feel, like the impact and legacy that you've left?
Yeah, I feel very proud. And I feel very, a sense of satisfaction. Those times were difficult. There was a different society. There was a less tolerant society. There were challenges internally and externally. And so to face all those things and come through it, and then see the fruits of your labor through other people's success, it has to be said. There's a great deal of satisfaction there, and like I said, that focus and that tunnel vision that you have to address those adversities, let's put it that way, either make you or break you. And fortunately, it made me, because I had some great people around me, and so I'm proud of that. To your point, I'm really proud of it, and I've dined out on it a few times. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you talk about people around you, obviously, some sort of friends of yours, Laurie Cunningham. Who else do we have?
Garth Cross.
Garth. Garth. Some fantastic. Some guys who were there or had been there maybe a few years before you in terms of football, and or around the same time. I suppose you don't sort of, you say, it's important to you, but football was vital, and playing and making sure that you got out there and did yourself proud. Did you sort of call on those people? Did you speak to those people, especially when maybe there were some harder times because of being black?
Yeah, well, actually, no. To be perfectly honest, no. You just got on with it. Honestly, you just really got on with it, and that's where the steely determination came in. I would look, at Garth Crooks, for example. Garth Crooks was at Stoke City. We were around the same age, and I saw his rise, and I saw my rise, and I saw really the pathways of certain other black players who probably didn't have the same level of determination, and there were negative things written. So there was a lot of opportunities to quit and give up. All I did and all I knew was that I had the belief, because I was competing every day. I didn't feel inferior. I've never felt inferior. I felt wanting on the pitch on a few occasions, but that's just the nature of the industry and the position I played, that sometimes you have a bad day, but I never ever felt that I was below anyone. And I think that if you can acquire that quite early, I think that you become very resilient to a lot of things. And I think that's what I acquired. I mean, it's very cathartic having these conversations, because as you get older, you can rationalize it a little bit more in terms of and articulate it better, because you see some of the sports people going through what they're going through at the moment, but it's different challenges in terms of like social media and things like that. I mean, I think it was, in a lot of ways, it was probably easier back then in some ways than it is now, because we weren't under that microscope. We were marginalized, yes, to a degree, externally, not internally, externally, and that was fine. We had a protection mechanism, which having a support system helps with that. But I didn't speak to many players. The only time I really had a major conversation is when we played, remember the black team against the white team. I'm sure you saw those headlines, and that was incredibly groundbreaking. Didn't realize it at the time. That just started off with a bit of banter between Cyril Regis and Ron Atkinson, and ended up as a fully blown huge game at the Hawthorns. And I never wanted to win a game so badly, I've got to say, and we did. And I was playing with some of my heroes: Laurie Cunningham, Cyril Regis, Garth Crooks, George Berry, Bob Hazel, Remy Moses. I mean, they were just terrific players, and I felt proud of that, but I didn't feel out of place. So I think there was camaraderie in just the fact that you knew that there were people out there. You weren't on your own. That was one of the things that gave you strength, on top of obviously my support mechanism, my family and my friends. It was a joint effort. There's no two ways about it.
You played that game while you were a Hereford player, and that was about 3 months after I think you joined Hereford United.
Yeah.
You joined for about £15,000, I think. So how did that come about after the Leicester experience?
Well, I've said this on many occasions, but I wanted to stay at Leicester. And what happened at Leicester is that we finished, I think it was 10th in the old First Division, what is the Premier League now. And I had a fantastic manager, and he gave me opportunities, and I took those opportunities, and I had to work to getting, an England international out of the team. And so I was happy to bide my time. And they did the outrageous thing of sacking the manager when we were 10th in the old First Division. And they brought in a guy called Frank McClintock, and it was his first gig. And Frank, bless him, he was an ex-Leicester player and obviously an Arsenal legend. But in all honesty, Frank, it was too big a job for him. And we got relegated that season. And I think every player would say this. I've been I won't say victim, that's too strong a word, but I've suffered from managers being switched out and coaches being switched out because they have all their different philosophies. I played a few games under Frank, but he brought his London crew in, and we got relegated. It's as simple as that. And we got relegated 4 or 5 games before the end of the season. And when a guy called Ian McFarland took over as caretaker manager, my first game I played against Liverpool and I scored. at Anfield at the Cop End. And I just wondered if Frank would have had the ability to take on those young players that were there, who won the Youth Cup twice, by the way, and work with those players. Then anything could have happened. I mean, we could have. I would have definitely had an even more fruitful career. So yeah, Jock Wallace came in after Frank got sacked at the end of that season. Sorry, before the end of that season, should I say? And Jock had a different philosophy. He was a no-nonsense taskmaster. I know he was at Hereford as well, wasn't he? As a goalkeeper, I think, wasn't he? But I wasn't Jock's type of player. Jock, wasn't into ball players, and I asked for a transfer. I knew by that time I'd been at Leicester 5 years, and I needed games under my belt. I needed to have a CV of games. 5 years into it, and then probably, I don't know, played 12, 13 pro games, played every single reserve game, but I needed league games. And Hereford came along, and I've got to be honest, I wasn't sure where Hereford was, if I'm honest. I ain't gonna lie. They said it was on, it was on the edge of the Midlands. So my simple state, I thought, okay, yeah, I'll. And Mike Bailey was the manager. Mike Bailey was a fantastic player. Bobby Gould was his assistant, and I met them at a hotel in Northampton, and love what they had to say. They said they were looking for players like me who had a good track record with a first division club, and they were looking at Aston Villa, Coventry, and they did what they did what they say they were going to do. And we did have a decent nucleus of players who we brought in, and Mike left after a few months of me being there, and again the roller coaster started again. New managers come in, and yeah, that's been the theme, I think, for a lot of players over the years. And it's a difficult thing, because it's all about opinions, this game. That's why I sometimes hate it, but I end up falling in love with it again, because it's an incredibly sort of opinionated game in a lot of instances. But I think that what we lack, I think, in the game is time, especially for young players. So when I came to Hereford, I was hungry, and I was actually angry as well. And I wanted to prove. And it was dropping down a few divisions, a couple of divisions, but that didn't bother me. My love for the game came through. And that's why I think I had such a successful time at Hereford. And I played with, the fire in my belly that sort of gave me, I think, the impetus to go on and play over 600 league games,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? I think that's what sort of drives you sometimes. What did you, when you finally found Hereford, when you finally worked out where it was on the map, what did you think of the place? What did you think of Edgar Street at the time? Obviously not quite looking quite like it does now, but what did you think of it?
You know what? I thought it was cute and quaint and peaceful, totally different to my city lifestyle. I enjoyed it because what that meant, it meant concentrating on football. I was so well received. There were about 4 or 5 players that Mike Bailey had brought in as well. And he brought in Ian Hendry, he brought in David Cunningham, he brought in Val Thomas, he brought in Frank McGrellis from Coventry. 1 or 2 others that escaped me. But yeah, I mean, he brought in players around my age. And so we were all kind of making our way together. So I didn't feel lonely or isolated or anything like that. We shared digs. I shared with Ian Hendry and Val Thomas. And we rented a place, a room with a very famous referee that you probably wouldn't know. Well, I know you wouldn't know, but he's got a very famous referee called Jim Finney. And lovely guy, lovely family. I'm still in touch with his son actually on Facebook, and his daughter as well. And lovely people, proper football people. And so that helped me because you have to immerse yourself in the game. And Hereford were just, I think, a couple of seasons off the back of that incredible result against Newcastle. So the town was buzzing anyway. They had some very good players. Steve Emery, who went on to play for Derby County. I'm not sure if you've interviewed any of these guys, but Kevin Sheedy had just left. So they'd had a bit of money as well for Kevin Sheedy. Chris Price was there, very good player. You know, so they had some great lads as well. Andy Feely was there as well. And so they had a good setup. Pete Isaacs, I remember him well, the physio. It was a very welcoming club. And like I said, a very homely club. And I think off the back of that Newcastle event, I think that it was very driven to be successful, you know, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed living there. I enjoyed the calmness, the peacefulness of the place. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Ask, you mentioned the Newcastle result. When you joined, we were just off the back of 2 successive relegations. So we were in Division 2, which was the Championship, and then you came in Division 4. Was there a sense of also, you know, there was the harder Newcastle game, but disappointment that we kind of risen and plummeted so quickly within that time? Did you feel that at all?
No, I didn't feel it. I honestly didn't feel it because, you know, again, it's that new manager, you know, sort of bounce back, isn't it? In terms of Mike Bailey and Bobby Gould, they weren't the in charge when they got relegated. I think it was Colin Edison, I believe. Was it Colin Edison? I think. Anyway, yeah, and so there was a sense of optimism there. And, you know, we were riding on the back of that. Yes, I was aware that there was relegations there and things like that. But, you know, you could see in some of the operations that they were professional in what they did. There was a number of things that they learned off the back of being in the second division. You know, and the ground was good. They had a really good groundsman, I remember, and the pitch was decent most of the time. And so there were certain things that were put in place that you could tell that they'd learned from being, you know, at, you know, a decent level. So I didn't feel any negativity, even for the players that experienced that. I didn't really get that sense of sort of defeatist attitude. I think that I keep saying Frank, Mike and Bobby Gould, I think they created an environment that was conducive to playing the game because they both play at the highest level, you know. And so yeah, I think that they created a good environment.
Yeah. So obviously you come to Hereford. Your first game was Scunthorpe, I think. And I mean, from what I mean, so there's one of the Hereford fans, Reg, I messaged him today because everyone kept going on about what turns out to be your 5th game, I think, which was Doncaster Rovers, and you absolutely turned tore everyone apart, and just. He, in Reg's words, single-handedly destroyed Doncaster Rovers. So there you go. But he was mentioning about the Scunthorpe game as well, where I think we won 3-1, and just the wingers, you know, obviously yourself, just continually running up and down. Just, you know, was that your style? Was that something that you know, skillful, quick, and just keep running?
Yeah, I remember that. It's funny. I mean, I forgot the opposition, but I remember the game well. I remember it 3-1. Davy Cunningham on the left, me on the right. And he was a very direct player, left-footed, good crosser of ball, great background, Aston Villa background. And I did not want to be outshone. And so what Davy did on the left, I was going to do better on the right. And it was a fantastic game. It was I loved the crowd, the atmosphere. It did encourage me, and yeah, it was a wonderful game. And yes, I did play well. I played very, very well. And yeah, my game was all about speed and ball trickery and creativity. I was brought up in the right way. You know, we are there to help our strikers and, you know, pitching with a few goals, you know, double figures if possible. And I was very conscious of that. And like I said, it's not until you get to a certain level that you realize how much you've learned from the previous experiences you've had, i.e. Leicester City and a great manager in Jimmy Bloomfield. That's when you realise, that you had a good set of tools in your toolbox, if you will. And so that was my game. And that's, up until I was like, my legs weren't as kind of good anymore. That was always my game, a tricky winger, getting past the fullback and getting a cross in.
So Winston, you had a blistering start to your time at Hereford, and then you got the call up, as you said, from Mr. Cyril Regis for the Len Cantello Testimonial. What's really interesting about that testimonial is the 3 degrees and how much attention and spotlight that they get, because it's very rare for teams to field 3 black players at that time. But what's really interesting and what people don't talk about a lot is Hereford United at that time had 3 black players. You had yourself, Stuart Phillips, and Val Thomas. Yeah. So why do you think that's not talked about enough? I mean, that's a really interesting kind of point, really, when you think about it, because you also had the 3 players at West Brom. But how important were they as 2 black players in the Hereford side as well for you? I mean, did you guys have a good relationship? What was that like playing with them as well?
Yeah, we did have a very good relationship. I'm still in touch with Stuart on occasion now, and Valmore. Unfortunately, his career was marred with injury. But super guy. And yeah, that was one of the things that was really important when I moved to Hereford, that there was a representation, and that was fantastic, in as much as we all 3 got called up for that game. And we didn't know what to expect. We didn't, for the life of us, we didn't realize how big the crowd was going to be. It was incredible. What was significant about that game was the fact that, we're talking, what was it? Was it 80? Was it 1980 or 79? I can't remember now.
79, I think, yeah.
9. You hardly saw black people watching games, right? You go to, I don't know, wherever in the north, Newcastle, Hartlepool, wherever. You didn't see black people watching games. All I could see when I looked around was black people. I mean, probably wasn't. It was probably a mix, but it was just so refreshing to see that representation. That's when it dawned. I mean, it was absolutely genius and brilliant by West Bromwich Albion Football Club to put that on. I've got to give them so much props for that. It was a very brave thing to do. Something that couldn't happen now. It shouldn't happen now, right? But at that time, somebody has to get the green light. I mean, obviously, the charismatic Ron Atkinson obviously played his part in that. But Cyril told us about how that came about, and that was, on a Friday you'd have 5-a-sides, and it was the English against the Scots. It was the skins against the non-skins. It was the English against everybody else. We had that. So to actually do something as brave as a black team against a white team, I just thought it was genius. And I've spoken to Cyril on God bless him, he passed away a few years ago, but Cyril lived down the street from where I lived in Birmingham, and we've had endless conversations about that. And he didn't realize the magnitude of it. He never realized the magnitude of it until he noticed that those same people that weren't coming to games, black people, started to come to games. And that's massive. That's a society shift, that's huge. And I remember playing really well in that game, actually. Played very well. And Ron Atkinson was looking to sign me, and he watched me on 3 or 4 occasions. And it was just an incredible game. And meeting my fellow teammates, the ones I mentioned before, it gave you a validation. It gave you a validation. And I'm not, we're not on our own. We are fighting for something more important than us, more important than the individual. And it's been talked about today, all those years later. Isn't that amazing?
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The BBC, didn't you, with Adrian Charles? I saw. I think it was a reunion where you guys rewatched the game at the Albion ground.
Yeah, I couldn't make it actually because I was in Florida. I was invited and I couldn't make it. It just timing was all wrong. But I did see, and there's been there was a show about it as well. I think a one-off program about it as well, wasn't there? I believe. Yeah, if that's the same one, you're probably the same one you're talking about. But yeah, I did watch it. My brother sent it to me, and it was. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been there, because I don't think I think Cyril passed by then. I know Laurie had gone by then. But yeah, it was it would have been wonderful to go back there. And of course I ended up playing for West Brom as well, which is even nicer, because I when I actually made my first sort of speech, I guess, if you want to call it that, I did make a reference to it. I always said I wanted to play for West Bromwich Albion, because of what they did. I thought it was an incredible gesture to allow that to happen. It wasn't controversial. It was just a bunch of guys having fun, getting onto a pitch for a bet and for a great cause. Len Cantello, fantastic player, his testimonial, and again, props to Len as well. It could have gone badly wrong, but it didn't. It was perfect. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's great to hear, isn't it? As you say, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because it would not happen today, and you say quite rightly, yeah. But it's such a, I don't know what the right word is, milestone, but such a leap forwards in terms of just play people. Fans watching games, as you say, just for black people to be able to feel comfortable going to a football match, particularly that game, yeah. And for all obviously, hopefully the good that did, and that it did push on. This is maybe the slightly more difficult side of football, unfortunately, at that time. But what was it like playing in the 70s and 80s as you were playing, obviously, all over the country? What was that like?
Yeah. Again, the band of brothers that you have in a changing room, that gives you so much protection. Because if you're a decent player, and more importantly, a decent person, they will have your back. And the majority of the dressing rooms I've been in, I've been respected for my ability. And it was the same when I was at Leicester, same when I was at Hereford, in the signed in the 70s. You'd hear the noise. You couldn't escape the noise. But you just got on with it because we were professionals, Now, I think the conversation really should drift towards those ones that had a promising career, like me, but didn't make it. I can't say that I was any stronger than them. I just probably had a different mentality, because at times it was horrible. It was incredible for one of the greatest players that this country's ever seen, John Barnes, to put on the front of his book a picture of him kicking a banana away is incredibly telling, right? Mm. For me, that's an incredible foresight by John Barnes, first and foremost, who's a great guy. But he knew that that statement was far more important than his career. And that's how I felt. I felt that I was representing all the time. So how you conduct yourself as a player, as a person, I think can help with all that negativity. And so I cope with it in the best way I knew how, by doing my stuff on the field. Interesting story. I've told this a few times, but I'll give you the fast version. Jimmy Bloomfield, who is the best manager I've ever played under, he gave me an opportunity to play in a pre-season friendly. He put me on the bench against Millwall, the old Den. horrible place, like playing in a gladiator arena. You know, it was horrendous. You got it going in and on the coach, and you certainly got it coming out. And he put me on with 25 minutes to go, and I was warming up along the touchline, and I was just focused. It was the first time I'd ever been involved in a first team game, pre-season friendly. And the game finished. I had a good 25 minutes, made a decent account of myself. And we're getting on the coach, and Jimmy said to me, "Winston, I want to see you first thing Monday morning." But bearing in mind, I'm still an apprentice, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm in trouble. So Monday morning, knocked on his door, 9 o'clock in the morning. And he said, he didn't even turn around. He was actually combing his hair in the mirror. Didn't even turn around. And I said, "Boss, it's Winston here. You wanted to see me." He said, "Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about Saturday's game at Millwall. What did you feel when you heard all those people shouting those horrible things?" And without skipping a bit, I said, "What things?" And he just went, "You didn't hear it." I went, "Hear what?" He went, "Get out of my office. You're going to be a professional footballer." He knew if he'd have made a big deal out of it, it may have got in my head. It may have got in my head, but he didn't. He just said, "Get out of my office. You're strong enough mentally." That gave me such a lift. Yes, I did think about it, because obviously I had to think back as to what, and I realized, oh yeah, these people looked at me as if they wanted to kill me, and it was managed really well. So, like I said, I've had good people around me who appreciated me for me, and obviously realized that I was a decent player, had a decent way about me. And that is the driver right there. That's what keeps you going. So those ones that don't make it may not have had the support mechanism, just didn't think it was worth it. And there's times where, especially when you're having a bad game and then you're getting that on you as well. And I've had that. But you just got to dig deep sometimes, and I know it's easier said than done, but I remember all those things like it was yesterday. It was tough, but my brothers got it worse than I did in terms of walking down the street and stuff like that. And then my friends got it far worse than I did. I was privileged, and so I'll never moan about it. I'll never complain about it. I'll just say, I just dealt with it the only way that I knew how, making them angrier by my ability. What else can you do? So yeah, that was a bit heavy, wasn't it? A bit heavy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, no,
amazing resilience there. I mean, amazing how you've got through that. And you, as we've said earlier, you've inspired a whole generation of talent. You've paved the way for them to come through. So you're an absolutely unbelievable human being for, going through that, showing that resilience. And it's amazing here the support you had from Jimmy as well. And I know you said Mike was a good manager as well, Mike Bailey.
Yes.
But early on in your Hereford career, there's a lot of management change. That was tough as well in itself, I can imagine. But you had a real high with I remember you made the Welsh Cup final against Swansea.
Yes. Oh my God!
How was that, despite all the kind of management change and things like that? How was that high early on in your Hereford career?
Yeah, that was fun. That was a journey. That was a fantastic journey. We weren't doing very well in the league. I think we're about 6th, 7th, and bottom. But every time we stepped up in the Welsh Cup, we played very, very well, and we beat some decent teams along the way. And we played the mighty Swansea at the time with Leighton James, who I ended up being a teammate with at a couple of other clubs going forward. And they had a fantastic team and a really good manager. I think John Toshak was still the manager then. They had some super players. They had what's his name, Curtis on the wing. I think Brian Flynn may have been there as well. They had some super players. About 5 or 6 Welsh internationals, super players. And yeah, we were on a really good journey. That was a ride. That was fun. And yeah, we missed out. I think we lost 1-0, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? I think we lost 1-0, but we gave a good account of ourselves, and we took that on to actually get some decent results from then to the end of the season. And because we were in danger of going out of the league at one point, and I think that rallying run that we had in the cup helped us somewhat. Yeah. So good times there.
Yeah, obviously Hereford's cup pedigree, coming in there, as well as I think the season after that, you got to the fourth round of the FA Cup, where you played against Leicester. So what was that like? What was that like playing against Leicester again?
Well, most of my former teammates were playing. Talking about Gary Lineker, who's still a friend of mine to this day. Players you probably don't know, Tommy Williams was there. Larry May, good friend of mine still to this day. There were about six players. Peter Welsh as well. I knew Mark Wallington, great, fantastic keeper, great guy as well. So it was really interesting playing against them. But yeah, I had a point to prove, and I enjoyed the game. I didn't enjoy the result, and it was. Yeah, I was looking for redemption in that game, I got to say, but I got it later on down the line. When I was at West Brom, I scored against Leicester. But yeah, I was wanting to get a result against Leicester, but it was great playing against my old team.
Amazing. To be friends with Gary Lineker as well. That's a cool thing to say.
A little known fact, but it's Gary Winston Lineker.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And every time I see him, I make him aware of the fact that he's the second Winston, not the first.
But you mentioned some amazing cup runs and games, but in the league we didn't seem to be doing too well. I mean, under Frank Lord, what was kind of happening? Why do you think we were kind of finishing at the bottom end of the table and applying for re-election?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think that there were too many changes made. If looking back, there were too many changes made too soon. We had the nucleus of an okay team, and he brought a lot of players in from the north of England. One or two that did fantastic. Well, it has to be said, but I think it was recreating a whole new team, and sometimes it's hard to integrate. It was a little bit easier for me because the players that came in from the Midlands, and we all kind of stuck together, and it was a little bit easier. But the players came in from the north, and like I said, there was one or two really good lads. People like Mel Pedgick, notably, great guy. Still in touch with Mel, and others. But it just, again, I can't really criticize Frank too much, because I think his heart was in the right place. But we needed a bigger squad. I know we were hit with injuries that season, and that didn't help. I mean, they mentioned Valmore Thomas got injured quite early into his tenure. Remember Sean Lane? He was a decent player, out for quite a while. So we did suffer with a few injuries, but just to be perfectly honest, we just weren't ready for making a good assault for promotion. Winning's a habit, and we just couldn't get into the habit. It's really that simple. I can't really say any more than that. Every game was tough and challenging, but I know we had a very small squad. I remember that we didn't have a depth of squad to call in on. I remember that very well. I remember we had to bring in a reserve keeper for quite a while as well that season as well, for a good chunk of that season, because I think either Tommy Hughes was injured or out of sorts or whatever, and that didn't help. Lyndon Knight, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't. There were things that just didn't work out for us that season. So and to be fair, I don't think I had a particularly great season. I had a few games that I did quite well, but I was part of that team, so I take responsibility as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously, then your following that, your time at Hereford came to an end.
Yes.
So how would you sum up your 4 years with Hereford, if you sort of had to?
I would say started off with a bang, ended up with a whimper, if I'm honest. I mean, we had let me see, we had obviously Mike Bailey, Frank Lord, then we had Tommy Hughes as interim for a little while, and then we had John Newman. I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. yeah, by the time John came in, I knew, I was becoming disillusioned then, if I'm honest. I was realizing that I needed to play at a high level if I was ever going to do anything. I had a personal crisis. I'd lost my mum before my 24th birthday, which was a gut-wrenching thing to happen to anybody. And I needed a fresh challenge. It was more the personal side of things that I needed a fresh challenge. And so I ventured out to Hong Kong. So I realized that a player's shelf life is short when it comes to playing at clubs, and it was just my time to move on. So yeah, started off with a bang. Enjoyed every game I played with Hereford. Enjoyed the people. Enjoyed the environment. Have nothing but affection for it. But it was a bit of a shame how it ended towards the end, because, like I said, it was for personal reasons that I needed to move on. And like I said, I ended up going to the other side of the world to play.
Yeah. So what was that like? What was Hong Kong like?
Amazing. Changed my life. It gave me the wanderlust. It gave me the desire to see the world, and the realization that we're far more alike than we realize. I was 24 years of age. I needed to know more about myself. So what better than go on this journey of discovery about myself and the world? And I came back refreshed, revigored, and my career then went on to another level again. And I actually got back to a decent standard again after 4 or 5 years with West Bromwich Albion. So I think I was justified in my decision to make that change, But it was brought on. It was brought on by changes of manager again. The same thing, same thing, Yeah.
Amazing you went out there, because it wasn't really common for players to kind of go abroad at that time. So it's especially to Hong Kong, the other side of the world. That's incredible. But what actually brought you back then? From that experience, why did you not stay out there longer? What brought you back to England?
Well, I love my family first and foremost. England's my home. I love England. If the weather was better, I'd never have left. But the weather is crappy, so I did. But I still loved England, and like I said, I'm from a big family. And I love the game, and the game in Hong Kong was great. It was fun. They paid great money, but there were things that I missed. I was there for 2.5 months or something, and it was my time. The season was over. I could have stayed another season. I decided that I'd done my time. I learned enough about myself to take that second go at it again. And I did, and I came back. Like I said, I came back refreshed and revigorated. But Hong Kong as a place, I've been back since, and I absolutely love the Far East. People are gracious, wonderful people. Again, I was well received. I was respected for the football I played, and I think that's always been the common theme in my life. I embrace culture. I embrace the excitement of the fact that I've got this ability, and that I could, try my skills in another culture. I've always felt that, we can't live in this bubble. When you live in a bubble, that's where you become stagnant and dinosaur-like. So I'm always one for traveling and thinking outside the box somewhat, and I've continued to do that.
It sounds like it was a great experience out there. You moved to the not so very exotic Chesterfield, Port Vale, Stockport, and Bury. Very slightly different, but it felt like you had a good time at Bury. You won the Division 4 title, which is unbelievable. But you had a brief spell at those 3 other clubs. Were you kind of not settled there before you settled on Bury? Like what? How did you end up at Bury?
Yeah, well, what happened is that that football is a crazy thing. When I was at Hereford, I was told, a few years later, I had about 5 or 6 top clubs looking at me. Like I said, West Brom were looking at me, Derby County were looking at me, Wolverhampton Wanderers were looking at me. Hereford just didn't even tell me, right? And then for the reasons I told you before, I wanted to leave, and the crazy thing about the game is when you're out of sight, you're forgotten. So when I came back, I'd only been away because I left before the end of that season with Hereford. And I came back, it was August, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was August. So pre-season had been done. I'd have gone for decent money before that. But when I came back, I was like the forgotten child, you know, and clubs would contact me and they say, oh, come for a month. So those Chesterfield and Stockport, they were month contracts with a view to signing me, right? So Stockport, I think I played 5 games or 4 games, I can't remember now. I was at Port Vale as well with John McGrath, very good manager. Didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. So, but I had a month at all those clubs, and then I went to Bury, and it just felt right. Very close to Manchester, very, very football orientated. You know, you walk down the street, and there's another club there. It just felt right. The ground's very tight. You know, so you soak up that atmosphere, and so I did a month there, and they offered me decent terms, and I signed for them. And yeah, the following season we got promotion. We had Martin Dobson, who was an England international, and a great set of players. We had people like Lee Dixon playing at Bury. You know, a great experience. A guy called Andy Hill who played for Man City for a number of years after that, and a very famous player called Trevor Ross who played for Everton. We had a good team, and you know, we had a good coach, and yeah, it that was the thing. Once you're out of the spotlight, you're forgotten very quickly. So again, you have to earn your bones, and I did that through playing, and yeah, that could have been something that would have made me feel very defeated. But you got to go again, and that mental conditioning that I had as a young kid helped me throughout my career. You know, those knockbacks you get. And it doesn't matter at what level. I mean, I see players who played, you know, 400-500 Premier League games who are surplus to requirements. You know, perfect example, Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best Premier League players ever. You know, I've seen interviews where he felt isolated, he felt left out, he felt, you know, mentally, you know, exhausted. But you go again. Sometimes you need that fresh challenge. And, you know, I'm not putting myself in the category of Kevin De Bruyne, but the fact of the matter is that every player at whatever level, they go through these different ups and downs, you know, and that's the thing we have in common. And I would love to sit down with, you know, hundreds and hundreds of players to talk about these things, because some players don't recover from it. It's very cathartic. I did some podcasts when I was, when we were all in the, you know, the COVID times. And it was healing and helping me as well as those other players. And I think players should do that a lot more. Sports people, full stop. When your career's at a crisis point or when it's over, you go through these very challenging mentally challenging situations. And sometimes the public don't appreciate this. Think, oh, you should be so lucky that you're paid well and you know you're doing the sport you love. You can't stay switched on for 24/7. You're gonna have knockbacks, especially when you're injured. You know, being injured is the worst, but being left out the team is just as bad. You know, yeah, it's but you got to come back from that. In the face of adversity, you rise. You know, it's that old saying, isn't it? It's not how many times you fall down; it's how many times you get up. You know, and I think that's lived with me forever. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you had a couple more clubs. You say one of them, I suppose, quite close to your heart by this point, which is West Brom, as you mentioned.
Yes.
You know, what was that like? Again, you know, I know you've mentioned it, but you know, what was that like going there and sort of playing at the Hawthorns?
If I'm honest, an anticlimax, because that it was a team that had been recently knocked out by Woking in the Cup, and you had a number of disillusioned players there, and I went there, and my job, Bobby Gould's time, and my job was to, by that time I was 31, but I was a seasoned player, and I was playing in a potential promotion side in Burnley, and I left a fantastic dressing room to a not very good dressing room, and I haven't spoken about this too much because I have, as a club, West Bromwich Albion as a club is an amazing club. I love that club, but you're only as good as the people in it at times, and the staff and personnel in terms of how that club is run is fantastic. But there were some players there who just they didn't want to be there, and once you've got that divisiveness in the dressing room, then there's only one way you're going to go. And unfortunately, we went the way that that we deserved to go. So although I had some great moments, I scored against Leicester on my home debut, which again was redemption. I had some good games. I got injured. I broke my jaw at West Brom. Had a really bad medial knee injury, so I was restricted on how many games I played. But when I did play, I played well. I did well. So I think I was good enough for that level, and I'm truly blessed and thankful that at 31 I could get back to a very good standard, and that was very satisfying, you know. But yeah, it was challenging times. I'd rather play at a lower level with a great dressing room than a top level with, you know, I'm got to be careful what I say, but it wasn't as harmonious as it should have been. Let's put it that way. And I think that the results of that season before I got there reflected that. And but yeah, I always look out for West Brom, as I look out for Hereford, as I look out for Leicester, as I look out for Bury and Burnley, and you know the clubs that I played for. I always look out for them. And yeah, you know, Hereford is close to my heart, and it always will be. And I'm always happy to do a podcast or an interview of sorts. And at some point, I will come back to Hereford and say my thank yous again for those people that treat me so well. You know.
Yeah, we'd definitely love to have you back at the club at some point. Join us for hospitality one day. You're more than welcome to come along.
I most certainly will, without doubt. Yeah.
You were like a fine wine, Winston. Like the prestige of clubs towards the latter end of your career was even better and better. Like playing at West Brom and then Burnley. You played in Division 2 again at one point. But what was the kind of situation when you decided to finish your career? What did you decide to go into after that?
Well, I had a bad knee injury at West Brom. I really had a bad knee injury that I didn't publicly say too much about it, but it did restrict my one of my strengths, which was my speed. I was still quick, and I was out for a long time. I missed the last 3-4 games of that season when we went down, you know, Ozzy Ardiles came in and quite clearly wanted a very, very young team. And although I still played reserve football and I was playing well, I just wasn't the same player. I knew that I was never going to maintain that level that I wanted to play at. So, you know, I thought I'll give it another season. So I ended up actually going to a couple of clubs again. Notably, I ended up at Wigan, and you know, scored a couple of goals at Wigan and did very well. And I just decided then that, you know, by that time I was 30, just coming to my 34th birthday. And I just thought, you know what, I've done my time. It's been a great ride, and I didn't want to fall out of love with the game. Didn't want to fall out of love. There was a couple of occasions where I was starting to, and then I just thought, yeah. I always had an eye when I got to about 27, 28. I always had an eye on the future anyway. I was a PFA delegate, so I go to all the meetings at, you know, Old Trafford and wherever else, Stamford Bridge, wherever. And so I was always conscious of the fact that there were players better than me, players who had a longer career than me, who were struggling. And I never wanted to struggle. I always wanted to have more about me than just being a professional footballer. And so I always had one eye on the future. And so I decided that, you know, still young with a bit of money in my pocket, I decided that I was going to try something new and different and take some of the skills that I had in terms of discipline, in terms of professionalism, in terms of dedication, and all the things that you need to be a professional athlete. I was going to take those things to my next career. And that's what I've done. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't easy. I went through a difficult, challenging time. You go through almost like a mourning period. And but it wasn't easy. But you just have to get on with it because, like I said, you're still young, and I still had fire in my belly. But I realized that it was time, and like I said, I didn't want to fall out of love with the game, but I've always stayed in touching distance of the game, and that's the most important thing. It's in my blood, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned that you live in the US now. So
Yes.
what are you up to these days? How do you fill your time?
PSSA. I am the head of operations for the Professional Soccer Scouts Association. In about 2012, I saw a education course for soccer, and they were delivering the course at Old Trafford, and I inquired about it, and it was how to be a soccer agent, not an agent, sorry, a soccer scout, beg your pardon, soccer scout, and a talent identifier. That linked in with my desire to be a soccer agent, or football agent, and I flew to Manchester, did the course, and that changed my life because I wish I had that level of knowledge when I played in terms of forensically looking at a player, forensically looking at a team, and being able to make a decision or decisions to counter the strengths of that team. So that's what we do. So when a fast track after the pandemic, I always stayed in touch with the PFSA, which is the Professional Football Scouts Association in the UK, and proposed to them that I'd like to set up the operation in the US. By that time, I'd been in the US since 2012, and they said, "Absolutely, you know, you're a great ambassador for us. You know, set it up. We'll do everything that we can to help you." And so here we are today. So I deliver the courses as a tutor. What we're doing is building a scouting network in the US, working with clubs, certifying their coaches in talent identification, team analysis, team reporting, and all the things that any coach who has aspirations to develop a player or find a player needs, that sort of tool in their toolbox. So we deliver all those things. It's not just a case of just looking on, at the TV and saying, "Oh, okay, he scored a fantastic, 35-yarder worldie." No, there's far more to playing the game. And who better than somebody like myself who can talk about it from an on-field perspective and working with top coaches, and who've coached some of the very best, like Marcus Rashford, like Kobe Manu coming through, Cristiano Ronaldo, some of the very best who played for Manchester United and Man City. I'm working with these guys. Mm-hmm. So, I'm actually learning so much from them in terms of some of the things that they see in young players, and they're learning a lot about me and players in terms of the mindset and so on and so forth, and some of the pitfalls, especially from a psychological point of view. So there's all those different factors in there, and certain considerations that need to be made when you are producing a good player at whatever level. Producing a player to have a career is a very, very difficult thing, and there's pitfalls along the way, socio-economic pitfalls, issues in terms of physical strength. There's so many things. Then you bring in females now, which obviously we're going to be watching the game later on today. It's a whole new dynamic now. So it's a market that's growing and growing and growing. And the US is still a little bit stigmatized by, data driven. But the eye is the most important thing. So it's trying to find that balance between the data, which is important. It just kind of helps to kind of sort out the wheat from the chaff, if you will, and the human eye. And that's where we're at the moment, educating the coaches to be able to identify certain things that data cannot pick up, So that's what I do. That's what I do in the US. I'm absolutely loving it. It allows me to travel the world. I'm off to Riyadh, actually, in Saudi Arabia in 6 weeks. I've just come back from Monaco. I've been to Nice. I'm coaching tomorrow up in Manchester. Yeah, like I said, the true global citizen, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
You're living the dream. That sounds absolutely incredible, and I'm very, very jealous.
Yeah.
But one absolute honour to have such an icon like on our
It's been a pleasure, guys.
podcast. Thank you so much. I mean, everything you've talked about, the resilience you've displayed, your experiences with Hereford, it's been absolutely inspirational and just an amazing listen. So thank you on behalf of the London Bulls podcast as well.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, guys. You're great interviewers, and I wish you all the very best with the podcast. I think if you carry on the way you are, I think you'll just keep getting your viewers, and you'll and you'll excel because you have a way about you. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Really
Any
appreciate that.
last thoughts from you, Tom? How did you find it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, thank you so much for talking to us. I mean, just your openness, as you said, you were happy to be open, and just what a career, and it sounds like what you're doing at the moment is just a dream almost, sort of traveling the world because of football. Who would have thought that when you were a young lad kicking the ball around the streets of Leicester? But
broke a few windows, lads, and family had to pay for it. But yeah, there you go. Collateral damage. What can I tell you?
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you everyone as well for watching, for listening. Really appreciate it. We'll be back soon. The season obviously starts in the not too distant future. Sort of getting to the friendlies at the moment, new players. There's a lot going on, isn't there, at Hereford, and football generally. And as you say, we've got the Lionesses to watch. Hopefully, get through to the final of the Euros.
Absolutely.
So that'll be exciting.
I just want to wish Hereford United all the best for this season. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll look after them, and I will if I can. I'll get to a game this season if I can. All right.
Thank you. We'll need to get you down for sure.
Yeah,
you have
definitely.
a great evening. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Cheers then.
Cheers.
Cheers all.
Bye.